maybe you get your...
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something most delicious, most palatable, a show for those with an insatiable appetite for the stories behind people, places, and things. What's the Recipe is where host Amanda Fowler chats with creatives, entrepreneurs, and the accomplished to uncover their one-of-a-kind recipe to success. How did they do it? What did it take? Pull up a seat at the table and indulge in the flavors of inspiration, innovation, and insightful dialogue. I hope you're hungry.
Welcome back to another Dish It Out. Happy Sunday, guys. I'm so excited to be sitting down because we're getting spicy over here. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm feeling very hot. Not just because it's hot outside finally. I feel like Colorado has been so all over the place with weather, like cold, then hot, then snowing, then raining, then gloomy. It's just been like a long winter, and I feel like for so long I was like, I love winter, I love skiing, I love the snow. But what I'm realizing is like I am such a Florida girl at heart. I am a summer girly. I'm a summer baby, okay? I love when I'm tan. I love when I can wear Daisy Dukes. I love when I can like wear as little clothes as possible. My skin can like be, you know, radiating from the sun. Like I just love the sunshine, the warm weather. I like sweating. I like being hot. So it's only fitting as this weather is warming and we're not wearing as much clothes that we do a spice it up-esque Dish It Out. So we're going to be talking about relationships. You guys asked me questions on relationships, and I am going to serve up some juicy, hot advice for you. I have not even looked at these questions, which I thought would be fun because usually I'll look at the questions beforehand and kind of get a feel for like what I want to say. But I was like, you know what? Let's do a little impromptu, like on the spot advice giving, because there were quite a few Dish It Outs that rolled through this week. And I'm glad that I wanted to do an episode on relationships because I could feel kind of the energy. Like, I think there's a lot that was stirred up in the spring. You could tell me the astrology. I'm so not well versed in the astrology of it all, but I know that there was a lot that was stirred up with relationships. And I think springtime was a big chaotic fuckery for a lot of relationships, and just a lot of things were you know, happening for people within their relationships, whether it's friendships or romantic relationships. But I am glad that so many of you feel the same way because I feel like we have a lot to talk about and there's a lot of advice to be served up for you guys. Before we dive in, as always, if you could take a minute to rate and review the podcast, that would be so appreciated because that's how people find this show. And I've got big things planned for this show. I love offering up my advice, and I also love sharing episodes with you guys where I'm talking to people and I'm kind of stirring the pot and we're having great conversations. And I just think there needs to be more like honest chats in the entertainment space. I literally found like a whole box of them in the car that I forgot I even had. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I should do a little giveaway. So the first 5 people who leave a rating and review, and what I mean by review is like a written review on Apple. The first 5 people who leave a written review on Apple can get a What's the Recipe hat. So I'm going to be sending 5 What's the Recipe hats to the first 5 people who leave a rating and review, written review on Apple Podcasts, because again, that's how people find the show and I've got big things for it. So, and if you do leave a rating and review and you don't get a hat, thank you so much anyway. It really does help. And so just know that I love you, and I'm going to be doing a lot more giveaways too. And if you are new here and you're like, what makes you qualified to talk about relationships? 1, I'm a girl. And I think that's just like what girls do. Like, it's just girl shit, you know? 2, I've been in a long-term relationship for like probably 10 years now. Lucas and I started dating when we were 16, and then we broke up for a year in college around 19 years old. And then we got back together, and I've been together ever since. And we're married now. We have 2 kids, obviously. And by no means is our relationship perfect, but that's never been our goal, is to have a perfect relationship. Our goal is to have a beautiful partnership that withstands the seasons of our lives, where we are each other's teammate, supporter, cheerleader. We are there for one another. We are picking up one person's slack when the other person isn't showing up. We are making sure that we are helping them be picked up when they're not doing well. Like, I think the sign of a good, healthy, stable, committed, long-term relationship is knowing that through anything, your partner will be there and you guys can withstand all of the different seasons that you go through. Because I think something that's unique to Lucas and I is like, we're technically high school sweethearts. We have been through so many different iterations of who we are and what we want to do and where we want to go. I mean, I was just talking to Lucas last night about how I'm kind of thinking of doing something. I'll let you guys know what I'm going to be doing, but it really doesn't pertain to anything with the podcast. Like the podcast is staying. It's not going anywhere. But I was just talking about like an idea that I had, and I was going through all of the other things that I have done in the past. And like, I've been so many different people. I have had a podcast, and then I wanted to do fitness coaching, and then I wanted to do health coaching, and I did do health coaching, and then I had a membership community, and then I was doing more group program for coaching, and then I was doing more social media. Like, I've done so many different things, and through it all, Lucas has just been such a supporter, such a helping hand, my biggest cheerleader, like has been there as a rock through it all. And I think that's really the sign of a healthy relationship is like, can you grow together and separately? So with that said, let's just get the fuck into it. Okay, this one is a good one to start off with. I've been with my boyfriend for 5 years. I have serious doubts, but leaving him seems exhausting. The biggest red flag is that he never makes me come. Should your husband do that? Okay, two separate things here. The first one I want to address is like, you've been with this person for 5 years and has serious doubts, but leaving seems exhausting. I would really encourage you to ask yourself, what about leaving your partner feels exhausting? Because think about how much more life you got to live. Like, to me, the thought of being with somebody that isn't doing it for me in all aspects of our relationship and all aspects of what I need and want, not just like wanting to have an orgasm, that like being with that person for the rest of my life seems way more exhausting than doing the hard thing for a potentially way better life. So I think you have to ask yourself, like, why does it feel so exhausting to leave this person? Am I scared of what they're going to think? Am I scared to hurt their feelings? Am I scared of what that would mean for me or what people will think about me? Am I scared to start over? I think here's the thing. When I broke up with Lucas, I was obviously deeply sad, but I was also excited because I knew that there was so much on the other side for both of us to explore and to work through. And I'm not even talking about people, but just like there was so much self-discovery that was waiting on the other side of me breaking up with him that I'm so glad that I did, because I was able to learn so much more about myself, learn more about what I wanted, what I needed, who I wanted to be. And yes, it was scary and hard to make that decision because it meant that like my everyday was changing. My routine was changing. The person that I talked to every single day for the last 3.5 years was not going to be in my every single day anymore. Like, it means that there's going to be an abrupt change in your everyday life. And that's scary. But for me, it was never exhausting. It was more like scary, sad, anxiety inducing, but also exciting at the same time because there was so much more room for me to explore myself. And so I would explore, why does it feel exhausting to leave? And maybe it's just like, oh, we live together. I would have to be, getting this and that and this. And, or what if I made a mistake? And to that, I say like, I don't believe that everything that is a wrong choice is a mistake. So like, say you do break up with your boyfriend and you are living together, and you move out, and then like 6 months later, you're like, holy shit, I actually love this person. I want to be with them. Like, I don't think that was a mistake to break up and move out in the first place. I think it was the exact thing you needed to give you the clarity that you now have. So I think explore why it's exhausting. And then the red flag, he never makes me come. Should your husband do that? I really try to stay away from shoulds because I don't think anybody should do anything. I would never tell somebody like, you have to do this, because I just don't believe in controlling people like that. But at the same time, like if your husband doesn't want to make you come, that's a red flag for me. I'll never forget one time, I think I was in high school and I was super insecure about giving blowjobs. because it's just something that I feel like I went to a private school. Nobody really talked about like giving blowjobs. I never really learned. And I'm somebody that's like, if I want to, like, I want to know how to do something and I want to know how to do it right. So like, give me all of the instructions. Like I want a tutorial, a how-to, a blowjobs 101. Like I'm somebody that's like, I want to know everything before I actually do it so that I can go into it feeling prepared, you know? So I was insecure in high school about giving blowjobs because I didn't know if I was going to do it right. And I'll never forget, Lucas was like, don't you want to pleasure the person that you love? He said this in like when we were like 17. I don't fucking know. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. And from there on out, like I gave blowjobs and I love giving blowjobs and I actually genuinely enjoy them. But that said, I don't think it's anybody's job to solely be your partner's happiness and source of joy. However, if like wanting an orgasm and needing orgasms and wanting that from your partner is something that you enjoy and you need and you want, you should be able to ask for that without there being pushback. I also feel like maybe it's something that you guys just haven't even talked about. Like, does he know that you actually want, him to make you come? Is that something that you guys talk about? If it's not, lay it out there on the table. Like, I also don't believe in like, well, he should just do that without me asking for it. Like, he's not a mind reader. He needs to be able to know what you want. And when you tell somebody what you want, it's now in their court. The ball is now in their court. And now they have the opportunity to either give you that or like fall short and disappoint you. But they can't do wrong if they don't know what you want. Does that make sense? So like, you have to tell them that this is what you want. And if you are telling them that and then they're still not doing it, I think that's a red flag. But if they don't know that that's what you want, it's not a red flag because they just don't know your needs and your wants. There's no communication. So I hope that helps. Explore why it would feel exhausting. I feel like you already have your answer. I feel like you do want to explore what it would be like without this person. But again, like if you want to try to make it work, have that conversation with him. But again, I think like these doubts aren't going to go away until you actually break up with him. And who knows, you might be like, oh shit, I actually do want to be with this person. Or like, thank God I did that because I actually don't want to be with this person. They're not my person. Okay, next. Can't snap out of my moodiness towards him after having a kid. Never in the mood to have sex, I'm assuming. I think that I just want to say I relate to this because for me, having sex sometimes feels like a chore. And I mean that in a way where, let me put some context into it. As a mom, you are constantly being needed. So like your kids, when they're babies, if you're breastfeeding, you are needing to feed them all the time. If they're not breastfeeding, you're needing to give them a bottle all the time. You're needing to change their diaper. You're needing to stop them from crying, or soothing them or comforting them. When you have, toddlers, they need snacks. They want water. They need this. They need that. They want you to play with them. Like you're constantly giving. And so I think sometimes the idea of sex can feel really irritating because it feels like another thing that you have to give to somebody versus receive. And so I would ask you if you could maybe reframe that from like, how can I start thinking about sex or even just intimacy as receiving versus giving? I also feel like sometimes with me, I find myself being really irritable and moody and just like listening to that irritability and moodiness of like not wanting to have sex. But sometimes for me, I actually have to like acknowledge that moodiness and irritability, let it go, and actively try to change it by like being intimate with my partner. And sometimes, I'll like try to be intimate and then like, you know what, I'm just really not feeling this tonight. But then most times I'm like, oh, okay, it's back. I just had to like let myself get there. I always say too, you can't just like, women specifically can't just like shift into sexy time mode. They need to be like shifting between all of the gears. You can't just go from like A to Z. You have to go A to B, then B to C, then C to D. And what I mean by that is like, we can't just like go from being a mom all day to then being asked to like give a blowjob or like being asked if we want to have sex. Like we need to ease our way into it. We need to connect with our partner. We need to have some foreplay going. We need to like be kissed. We need to be touched. We need to be cuddled. We need to be listened to. We need to connect and have conversations. And from there, we can get into the intimacy. But it's like this gradual slowing down and getting into the mood. But if you're not actually taking that time to get into the mood, like I totally get that. You can't just be like, I get irritated when my husband's like, hey girl, hey, like after I just got back from like dropping off the kids and have like a mountain of a to-do list or whatever. So I just want to say I relate to you. I hear you. I would really tap into how can I slow down? How can I communicate my needs of wanting to receive with intimacy versus feeling like it's a giving thing? And then also I would really advise you to journal. Like journal out everything that you're resenting or everything that you're bitter towards or everything that you're moody about, because that's really going to help you figure out the trigger. Okay. Navigating a relationship with a baby daddy who doesn't respect you. Thoughts? Okay. I'm very curious if you're still in a committed relationship with this person or if it is just your baby daddy that you co-parent with. Because if it's just your baby daddy that you co-parent with and he doesn't respect you, one, that's absolutely fucked. Because I don't know. I really don't know who raised these men who don't respect women. It just really, really, I can't fathom it in my brain. But I guess they exist. And I would say if it's a situation where you're co-parenting, but you're not in a committed relationship with them anymore, you have to do your best to protect your peace. And sometimes that means like letting shit go in one ear, not the other. Because I think people like this just want to get a reaction out of you. They get off on like feeling like they're better than you. And they're coming from a place of hurt. Like people who disrespect others feel disrespected. So this is obviously a deep-seated issue with this person that, quite frankly, you're never going to be able to fix. And so all you can do is learn to respect yourself, know what your boundaries are, know what you need to protect your peace, and do you. That's literally all you can do. And one thing I really will advise you to do is never talk shit about this person in front of your kids. And I'm not saying that you are, but I think that I've had so many situations where I've heard women specifically, or even men, but I've heard a lot of women, a lot of moms like resent their partners and talk shitty about their partners to their kids, or like not even intentionally doing it, but just like talking badly about the dad or the mom in front of the kid. And then it's like, it's not a good look. Like, I think that your kids are going to learn respect and how to respect other people from you. And clearly you want them to learn it from you and not your baby daddy, because he doesn't respect you and obviously doesn't respect women and people in general. So teach them how to respect others by respecting the fact that this is not something that you can change about him. And all you can do is do you and live your life. And your kids are going to watch you respect him regardless of the fact that he's respecting you, but also respect yourself, right? Because you don't want to get to a point where you're just like respecting everybody even though you're being disrespected. It's like, no, I'm going to respect myself, but I also give other people respect, even if they don't deserve it, because that's true respect, is like understanding that it's not conditional. I'm sorry you're going through that, by the way. And if you are in a relationship with this person, I don't know, man. I could never be with somebody that doesn't respect me. Like, that's probably my number one core value. Well, that and honesty, but like, if somebody doesn't respect me, they basically think that I'm a less than human, which I just don't fuck with. And I could never be in a relationship with somebody who thinks that I'm a lesser version of them. But that's just my 2 cents. Dish it out. Choosing your battles versus honesty. I probably struggle with this one too, because I am such an honest person, and sometimes it's really hard for me to bite my tongue. But I think for me, what I've learned is choosing my battles isn't necessarily invalidating my thoughts and my feelings. it's respecting them by understanding when they're going to be received and when they're going to be received the best. So what I mean by that is like, I could yell at my husband for not making the bed or not picking up his clothes or not doing the dishes. And don't get me wrong, I still do this sometimes. Okay. I'm not perfect. I still do this when I'm irritated and I just like explode. I'm like, oh, just fucking pick up after yourself. Like, I do this. Okay. I'm not coming from a place of like, I'm perfect. But what I have learned, because I do it a lot less, is like, is that going to cause an argument that is unnecessary? Is my point going to be coming across? Because my point to that is like, I thrive best when I am in a clean, organized house. It's not like, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. It's just like, I can't think clearly. I can't exist clearly. I get irritated when the house feels like a mess because then I feel like a mess. And I feel like it's one more thing that I have to do versus knowing that you are also doing your part. So if I like say, clean up your shit in the moment, what I just said is not going to come through. Versus if I don't say anything and I wait until my husband's done from work and he's decompressed and, you know, we've hugged and I've asked him how his day was and now he's able to hear me, I can come from a place of non-reactivity because I'm not like emotionally charged and making an impulse decision, but I can be honest about how I'm feeling with eloquence and also respect for him and knowing that it really isn't about him, it's about me. And here's something that he can do to support the thing that I need support with. So choosing your battles versus honesty is really hard. But I think if you can ask yourself like, okay, how can I be less reactive? And what's going to allow me to get my point across more clearly? Is it being honest in this moment? Or is it maybe picking and choosing my battles and not saying anything now or not saying anything ever? Stay-at-home mom in a constant state of fight or flight from my anxious attachment with my avoidant baby daddy. My intuition tells me to leave, but my support system is limited and it's expensive in Colorado. Okay. I think there are two things going on here. One, there's a really real like survival need that's coming up of like, I need this person for my own survival, my own basic human needs, water, shelter, food, money, like there's that piece of this. And then there's also the like, I am not feeling fulfilled by my partner. And again, I feel like this isn't just like when you have a kid with somebody, they're not just your partner. Like, yes, the relationship is important. And like you always want to have a loving relationship, right? But at the same time, like this isn't just like you could break up because you have a child and he's a co-parent and he's the father of your kid. And so I think there's a lot here. I am never going to tell somebody to stay. Like that's just not me telling someone to stay because they're comfortable and it would be easier. I would never tell anybody that. I just don't believe in that. At the same time, I am aware of how complicated it is to get out of situations like this. So the first thing I want to tell you is to just like take a deep breath because this is a lot and there's a lot that you're feeling. And I'm sure at times it feels like you want to just get the fuck out now and like you don't want to be in this situation because you're in such fight or flight. Like I get the anxiety that's coming through in this of like, I don't want to be in this situation at all. I just want you to take a deep breath and know that like you're in control of your actions. You have time. It's okay. You don't need to rush into this decision unless you are like in danger or something. And so if your intuition is telling you to leave, I would listen to that, but I would also really, I guess what I'm saying is like, I think you have your answer because your intuition is telling you to leave. However, I also am not going to tell you to leave if you feel like you don't have a good sense of security lined up, like a good foundation lined up. So I would really like advise you to journal about like, what's your game plan? Say you do leave, say you choose to leave. What's your game plan? What can you do? How can you make sure that you have enough of a financial like security blanket to get out of this relationship How can you make sure that you have a support system around you to help with your kid? How can you make sure that you have a roof over your head? Like what's your game plan? And that's why I say, like, take a deep breath. Don't rush into this, because like it might take you a while to do this. But I think you have to have a game plan in order, and you need to really look at your two options with complete transparency and honesty of like, okay, I can leave, I can stay. What are my game plans for both of these things? I hope that helps. Okay, you guys are coming through with all of these attachment style questions, which I love, but I'm like so not well versed on attachment styles. Maybe I should have somebody on the podcast about attachment styles. Let me know if you guys would love that, because I think it could be fun. But somebody says, I thrive when I'm single and independent. As soon as I start dating someone, it goes out the door, and I'm so codependent and anxious attachment style. Help. Again, as somebody who's not really well versed in the anxious attachment, I can only speak from like my understanding of this question and my understanding of the attachment styles. I'm assuming that you thrive when you're single and independent because you feel like you can't rely on other people, and the only person that you can rely on is yourself. But then when you get into a relationship where you're supposed to be able to rely on somebody, that deep-seated limiting belief of like, I can't rely on anybody comes up. So it's like this anxious attachment. I don't know if that's what you mean. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just literally guessing. And so honestly, like, I think a lot of what getting over limiting beliefs is like exposure therapy. Like sometimes you just have to be fucking in it and become so aware of the behaviors and the patterns and the thoughts and the things that you're doing that are perpetuating this narrative, and being like, enough, like this is enough. And I think you're already aware of this pattern happening. I also feel like when you meet the right person, it's going to be easier for you to navigate this attachment style, because you're going to have a partner who's going to be able to assure you and reassure you. I think if you haven't found somebody that is able to give you that reliance and that security, it's not your person. I think you would know. Like, I truly think that like relationships are, I don't want to say they're easy, but they work when they're supposed to work. And if you haven't been in a relationship that has worked, I think it's less about like, I have an anxious attachment style and that's why all my relationships are fucked. It's also just like, no, the other person wasn't willing to work through that with you. They weren't willing to show up for you in a way that also helps you heal your wounds. And so I just want to throw that out there so that you're like assured that like you're not broken. But I also feel like maybe getting something I used to do with my clients all the time was like the why concept. I would make them ask themselves why constantly over and over and over and over and over until they get to the root of what was behind the why, and it feels like they struck gold. So what I mean by that is like, okay, you say, I thrive when I'm single and independent. I would say, why? You say, well, because I don't have to rely on anybody else and I can only rely on myself. Why do you feel that way? Well, because I feel like I can't rely on other people. Why? Well, because I felt like I couldn't rely on my parents. Why? Why? And literally keep asking yourself why until you feel like you get to the bottom of like, oh, this is what is fueling the belief. Because beliefs are a huge part of our actions. What we feel is what we believe, is what we think, is what we do. And so if you are not being really aware of what your feelings are, like what feelings are turning into beliefs and what your beliefs are, you're not understanding that your beliefs are fueling your actions, and you can't then therefore change your actions. It's like I couldn't stop binge eating in college, like the action, because I wasn't fully aware of the fact that I thought that I had to control my eating to be able to be healthy or to be able to be thin. Like that's literally what it was I had a belief that to be thin or to be healthy, I had to control the way that I ate. And as soon as I hit that belief and realized that belief, I stopped binge eating. I stopped having a terrible relationship to food because I was able to pinpoint the belief, understand that that's absolutely fucked, learn how to work to dissipate that belief, and then operate from a new belief. And so for you, I would really just, again, get a journal. I should title this like, get a journal, guys. Dish it out and get a journal. I really would advise you to get a journal and just keep asking yourself why. Like, why? And I think you'll get there. If you hear kids playing outside in the background, it's because I am now home with my kids. I took a little bit of a break from recording this to go pick them up, and now they're playing outside with daddy. So let's get back into it, shall we? Just found out we're pregnant, getting married next month. So excited, but so scared. I wanted to answer this one because getting pregnant is so exciting. And I feel like this is an unpopular thing to share sometimes. Well, sometimes I feel like it is because I don't think a lot of people have this experience, but I loved both of my pregnancies. I loved being pregnant. Like, honestly, part of me sometimes just wants to have another baby so I can be pregnant again. Like, it's not even like, I mean, it's everything, but sometimes I'll be like, that can't be the last time I'll ever be pregnant versus like, that can't be the last time I'll ever be in the newborn phase. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just loved being pregnant so much. It was such a magical, cool experience for me to grow another human. I felt so beautiful. I felt so sexy. I felt so womanly and intuitive and in my power. So it's so exciting, and I'm so happy for you. And you're getting married next month. Like, there's so many amazing things coming your way. I also just want to let you know it's important for you to feel that fear. So I think sometimes when people get pregnant, everyone's like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. Or people are like all about the fear. Or there's also like mixed bag of emotions. But for me, my experience, it was like, I'm so excited for you, or like, I'm so scared for you. And I think it's important for you to first figure out how you feel about this pregnancy versus how everybody else feels about it. And that means that you have to sit in silence for a bit and like just sit with yourself and be like, okay, holy shit, this is so exciting, but what am I feeling? And I'm saying that it's important to feel the fear because I think that's something that I didn't necessarily do with my first pregnancy and my second pregnancy. And I think that they both times it caught up with me a little bit where I was feeling anxious and I was feeling worried and I didn't really know why. And I was like, oh, it's because I was scared and I never sat with those feelings, so they didn't go away. I think I sat with the fear a lot more with my first pregnancy with Lennox because it was my first kid and I was so terrified. I think with Ellis, I was like, oh, we're doing it again. All right. Nothing's new. Like I just knew what to do, but I think it's really important to feel that fear and just give that fear space so that it doesn't like sit below the surface, like acknowledging it, bringing light to that so that it doesn't get like stuck in the shadows. But yay, I'm so excited for you. If I think I'm settling, is that enough to know that I am? Please help. I'm so torn on what to do. Oh, I think no. I think it's normal to have those thoughts, truthfully. Like, I think that that's a natural thought to have, especially if you're somebody that tends to be an overthinker or tends to get anxious and be in your head a lot, or you compare a lot. I'm very curious where that settling is coming from. So for me, and this is why I'm telling you guys to take out a journal, because like I cannot process shit without writing it down and seeing it laid out before my eyes visually. So if I was torn between like, am I settling or am I not? I would literally write like, how do I define settling? Like, what does settling actually mean to me? And then from there, I would write down like, is my partner making me feel this way? So like defining settling and then seeing if this is actually what you are doing for your partner, and maybe even making like a pros and cons list. Like, what does your partner do for you? What is kind of lacking in the relationship? And being really honest with yourself and seeing if those are deal breakers, if those are things that you don't want to quote unquote settle for. I think the energy here is like, it's not enough to just stay in a situation, in a relationship that is not bringing you joy, growth, light, and making you feel excited. If you're feeling exhausted by a relationship, if you're feeling like you're settling, I just feel like there's an energy of like, I think we all are kind of knowing and understanding finally that we deserve more. And now it's about claiming that. How can you be really honest with yourself? And how can that honesty be enough to drive the action of actually making the change? So I think sometimes like we're honest with ourselves, but then we get stuck in like overthinking and anxiety because we don't want to actually like, we're in denial. Like we know, but we don't want to know, right? And so I think it's about how can you be really honest with yourself and then look at that honesty and be like, damn, I need to not neglect that. I need to do something about that. So like, how can you move that into action? But I don't know. I don't think just having a thought of settling is settling. I think that you need to get really granular and really into the nitty-gritty of how you define settling and then like if that's actually the situation for you. Virtual date ideas. Hubby is leaving for work for about 6 months. Not the first time, but I want more ideas. I have never done a virtual date because anytime I ever did long distance with Lucas and we would FaceTime, it was literally just us like chatting for hours because I can chat for hours. I'm trying to think of what could be interesting. Like you could do like a little lingerie moment, like pop up on the camera with some lingerie and like, I don't know, do something cute. You could also play We're Not Really Strangers, or there are a ton of card games out there, like conversation starter card games that I feel like could be fun. Because one thing I feel like people don't do enough in their long-term relationships is like ask the basic ass dumb questions that you would ask on first dates. So sometimes randomly when Lucas and I are on a date, like have a date night or something, we're like, what's your favorite color? Like, what's your favorite movie? Do you have a favorite season? What would you say is your favorite food? Like we ask the dumbest questions because we're also like, that could change. And it's also kind of fun to like go back to the beginning and be like, let me get to know you again. Like, let me date you again. So I think if you can think of like fun ways to make it feel like a first date, it could be fun and different. Someone says sex hurts, girl. Okay, if sex is hurting you, you need to go see a pelvic floor therapist. You could have a really tight pelvic floor. When I was postpartum with Lennox, they clear you at 6 weeks to start having sex, which like sometimes is just way too early for people. Sometimes it's great, but sometimes it's way too early. And for me, I had a C-section, so I never actually dilated and my pelvis never really expanded. So I experienced painful sex when it was time to start having sex again. And honestly, the only thing that made a difference for me and like stopped the sex from hurting was going to see a pelvic floor specialist. She like did an internal exam, which is literally when she like basically fingers you and like feels your pelvic floor muscles and kind of tries to like loosen them up, and then she can give you exercises as well. But that changed the game for me. And then use lube. People sleep on lube because they're like, oh, well, I'm not in my 50s and like in menopause, I don't need lube. It really does do wonders for your sex life. How to be patient and let your relationship blossom naturally. Okay. I feel like I can't relate to this question because I'm such an open book that if I ever had expectations for my partner that were on my mind, they would be communicated. Like if I ever was wondering where this was going or how, if I needed anything more from them, if I needed more communication, if I needed them to tell me like what they see for us long term, I would have communicated that. And I think if you're having a hard time being patient about your relationship naturally blossoming, I think it's because you're probably not getting answers that you need. So I think the first place is like, don't be sorry for needing a little bit more reassurance, or like, don't be sorry for needing like a check-in from your partner and being like, hey, how do you think this is going? Like, what's going on here? What are we doing? Are we happy? Are we not? Do we want more? Do we want to go a little faster in this? Like, this is what I'm feeling. I would like, these things to happen. These are my needs. These are my wants. I think it's just about having an open communication. And that's how you're going to be able to stay patient, because if you know where somebody is mentally, then you're able to respect that. But if you don't know where they are, I get it. You can't be patient and you're like constantly worrying or wondering or questioning things. So yeah, just literally try to be as open as you can. And I think that if it's your person, they're going to respect your openness. My boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years and living together for 3.5. Should there be a ring? We're 26 and 27. I'm 3 years post-grad and he's 6 months post-grad. All my friends have a ring and been together significantly less time than we have. Does he not think I'm the one? It's so interesting to me, everybody's timelines and shoulds and expectations, because I always try to think about where Lucas and I would be if we didn't get pregnant before getting married, like if we didn't get pregnant unexpectedly. Because for us, you know, we've dated for so long and we always planned to have a family together and get married, but it was really never our priority. So we went to different colleges, and really the priority for us on our mind before we got pregnant was, where are we going to live after college? Because we were in 2 different states. So we were just going to try to start living together and see what that would be like. And I don't even know. I think we wanted to travel, but like, and I can't say what I would have done, because I'm somebody that, like, again, I've never been the girl that like dreamed of getting married in that way. Like, yes, I wanted to get married, but it was never like my dream to be a wife and a mom. I always wanted to focus on my career in my 20s and like build my brand and really get my finances in order and like just work on me and focus on me and then have all those things. I never really wanted to do it super quick. And it's so funny because it happened the complete opposite for me, but it's so in my path and it's so in alignment for me. And I said this in my last Dish It Out, like, I don't think I would be where I'm at or the person that I am right now, who I love, if I didn't get pregnant when I did and I didn't become a wife when I did. So I think there has to be a little bit of fate and free will here. Like, I think that whatever happens is going to be on your divine path and in the right timing for you. I think when we rush things and we force things, it never is going to unfold in an easeful way. But I also think, like, you know, free will, like, what do you want? Because you do have a power in this. You do have a say in this. You do have control in this. And if you do want to get married young and then start having kids, and or maybe not even have kids, but like you do want a ring, that should be something that you should voice to your partner. Like, I don't want you to feel bad about wanting a ring, and maybe he doesn't want a ring, and I don't think he should feel bad for not wanting to like get married yet either. I think you guys just need to have a conversation about, and here's the thing, when I say have a conversation, I think people come into it like with all of these stories about themselves and about the other people or the other person. So like when you go into a conversation and you're like, all my friends have rings, I've been together with this person for 4 years, we've been living together for 3.5, everyone has been together significantly less than us. These are all stories that like you're making up in your head, basically telling yourself like, I should have a ring yet, why don't I have a ring? And then you're questioning, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not the one. But that's a story that you're making up in your head. And I'm not saying that these feelings aren't valid. It's just not necessarily the truth, because it might not be your partner's truth. So if you go into a conversation being like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, I'm noticing that when I see all of our friends getting engaged, it makes me question whether that's going to be something in our near future or not. And I just want to have a really grounded, honest conversation with you about like where you're at. Like, what do you want? What is a timeline that feels good for you? And then you're able to be like, here's a timeline that also feels good for me. How can we compromise on that? But I think it needs to come from a place of non-emotionally charged and not these stories in your head. Because like, don't go into this being like, you don't think I'm the one. Like, that's not the way to go about this. Leave your mental and emotional baggage out of it. Like, leave that shit that's going on in your mind and your heart out of it for a second, so that you can clearly communicate the answer that you're looking for him, because he might surprise you and be like, oh, actually, I was thinking about it a lot sooner than you think. And then you're going to feel like an asshole if you're like, you don't think I'm the one. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's really important to, again, have this conversation, but come from a place of not already assuming that he's thinking a certain way. And I don't think that means that you're not the one. You're so young. Like, I know that I'm sitting here and I'm married and I have 2 kids already, but like, that was never even the plan or the intention. It just kind of unfolded this way. And even though I'm a young mom and I love it so much and I like wouldn't take anything back, I also wouldn't tell other people to get married young and have kids young. Like, the grass isn't always greener. It's what works for you and your lawn. So think about that and really just understand that your timeline and his timeline is important, and you guys need to figure out how you can come to a compromise. Trust rebuilding. So how do you rebuild trust? For me, trust is not like a mental thing. And I think that people think about trust in a mental way, meaning like it's something that consumes their thoughts and they're worried about their partner and what their partner is doing and not trusting their partner. It's like all living here. But trust is actually action. Trust is behavior. Trust is doing. It's not saying, it's doing what you're saying, right? So for me, I'm really not somebody that like, if you break my trust once, like you're done. Like I really do give people second chances. And I think it's important to give people chances because people are human and people make mistakes. And who am I to tell somebody that they can't redeem themselves? That's why I fucking hate cancel culture, because I'm such a big believer in redemption, truly. And I do think people can change. So I feel like for trust and rebuilding trust, like you have to have boundaries and respect for yourself. So like, what is the line for you that when it's crossed, that means that this person doesn't respect you because they've showed you enough times that you can't trust them? So figure out that boundary and that line. But when you go about rebuilding trust, it has to be an evidence-based thing. So instead of your partner telling you that you can trust them and that they're going to do better and they're going to show up better and they're not going to do this or they're not going to do that and you know you can trust them again, they have to show you that. Like trust is not shit without evidence of that trust. So just communicate that with your partner of like, or if you did something, like communicate that, like either that you will show them that they can trust you or that they can show you that you can trust them. But again, trust is like so here's the thing. When trust is broken, a belief is formed. So when your partner's not loyal to you, there's a belief that my partner's not loyal to me, right? That's just a belief that forms from our emotions and the experience that was had. But if our partner over time consistently shows us that they are loyal to us now, that they made a mistake, but that's not definitive of them, and they can be loyal moving forward, and over time they consistently show you through little ways that they are loyal to you, then that's evidence enough. And I think we need to trust the evidence more. Like, I think people are always like, okay, I'll trust, but like, I'm going to sleep with one eye open. And it's like, that's not trust, because that's being closed off to full trust. Full trust is being blind and giving somebody your all, even though they could hurt you again. That's full trust. And that takes bravery to fully trust somebody again after they hurt you. But it's worth it. I'm telling you, it's worth it, because if they break your trust again, you know this is not a person worthy of your time. But if they don't, how beautiful. How beautiful. You've allowed somebody redemption. They've showed you that. And now you have a beautiful trust built on a huge past. Like, I think that when you can go through some shit and then be better humans for it and have a better, stronger relationship for it and have an open trust and open dialogue and just blindly trust your person, it's amazing. It's so beautiful. Versus like, okay, I'll trust you, but sleeping with one eye open and like constantly worrying. Like, when you constantly worry, you're doing more harm to yourself than the other person. Like, this person hurt you, so why should you be sitting here hurting yourself by overthinking and questioning whether this person's going to hurt you again? You don't have fucking time for that. Choose to trust them and actually give them your full trust. If they break it again, fuck them. But you can't do the whole I'm sleeping with one eye open thing, because you're gonna waste your own fucking time. You're gonna be so in your head, constantly worrying, and it's not going to actually build true trust. Because you should never have like tabs on your partner. They're a human fucking being. Set your boundary, give them another chance to show you that they can respect it, and if they don't, fuck them. That's pretty much it. Period. Last question. How do you communicate needs without shame or pointing fingers? Okay, so I wanted to answer this because this is something that I do when I am not mindful with my own needs and wants. So like, if I'm irritable and I'm stressed and I'm angry and I'm going to choose to be reactive, meaning like I'm going to choose to let my anger, my stress, and my irritability like win, then I am going to start pointing fingers. I'm going to start being like, I'm frustrated because you're doing this, or you're doing that, or I don't like when you do this, or pick up your clothes, blah, 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 blah. Like, I am totally going to take it out on the other person. But what's so game changing for me is if I can like acknowledge what's coming up for me before I say something. So if I'm like feeling some type of way and I'm feeling like I'm going to say something, if I can just like bite my tongue for a second, become aware of what's coming up and being like, okay, do I need to say this right now? Or walking away and sitting with myself and being like, okay, well, what's the root? Like, what is really going on here? Am I really frustrated that my partner is not showing up and doing all these things that I'm pointing the finger at? Or is this something that I'm actually doing and I'm feeling a certain way because my needs are not being met? How can I communicate these needs and wants without placing blame? Because it's not their fault. They don't know anything until you tell them. So I think it's just about how can you interrupt the feelings of the emotions that are coming up from the action of pointing fingers. And you do that by literally taking a fucking beat and being like, I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to walk away really quick. Or I'm going to gather my thoughts. I'm going to collect my thoughts. I'm going to go outside and put my feet on the earth. I'm going to go and lay in my bed for a second, take a few deep breaths. Like, disrupting the feelings to the reaction is the best way to stop pointing fingers and placing blame. Okay, that was a lot. You guys asked a lot of good questions, and I really hope that this helps. I kind of felt like I was channeling a little bit more of my like coaching side, which is why I love doing these Dish It Out episodes, because if you aren't familiar with me or haven't been following me for a while, my background is in holistic health coaching, and I would do a lot of mindset coaching and beliefs coaching and whole body wellness coaching with women through one-on-one coaching and then also group programs. And I loved it so much. It's not what I'm being called to do right now, but I feel like doing these episodes, I get to channel that part of me that like truly does love giving advice. And I think I'm pretty good at it. You guys can tell me, because I want this to be like an open dialogue. I don't want to just be sitting here talking to the camera or talking to a mic and not getting the feedback from you guys that I'm actually like either helping you or making you see something in a different way or just supporting you. So let me know if I answered one of your questions, if it was helpful. Give me an update. I'm so down to like do updates on the show and give everybody an update, because I feel like people listening are probably going to want to know too how people navigate these situations. So thank you guys so much for writing in. Again, what's so fun about this is that I get to feel like I'm kind of putting my coaching hat on, but also like I get to feel like there's a dialogue between us, because sometimes with social media you do feel like you're shouting into a void. So it's nice when I can get your submissions and like actually read them, because I just love connecting with humans. So again, if you liked this episode, please give it a rating and review. And remember, the first 5 people who leave a written review on Apple Podcasts, I'm going to send a hat to. So make sure you do that, and then DM me either on Mans Fowler or What's the Recipe Pod, a screenshot of that rating and that review, and I will get all your information and send you a hat. Thank you guys so much for listening, and this episode is officially 86th.